Welcome. If you're a generative AI enthusiast looking to become a ChatGPT guru like I am, well, you've come to the right place. Four of my classmates and I were on a mission for this semester to discover the coolest things our university, University of Calgary, is doing with generative AI. And with all honesty, we were just amazed with things we saw, from automating workflows to applications in neurosurgery. It just showed us the power that generative AI has on our future and how versatile and impactful it will be in the future. But it's not about the tools only. It's about the people who use these tools and the people who are building these tools. We met with researchers, industry professionals, doctors, and even fellow students to see how they're pushing the boundaries of what AI can do. And along the way, we learned about the challenges, the breakthroughs, and the big questions that come up with working alongside these powerful technologies. Our generative AI learning journey starts with our very own professor, Dr. Mohammed Keyhani, where he shares the story of how a large language model was able to become a millionaire all by itself.
If it was able to do so at a large scale, like $1 million, it would show a lot of capabilities of an AI being able to autonomously interact with the environment. While we were having this course, that Turing test was passed. An AI actually made $1 million. He basically built on that idea to say, what if an AI could enter social media, interact with real humans, and sort of try to like influence people in terms of their belief systems and their behavior. So he gave this instance of the AI, he called it Truth Terminal, a Twitter account. And that Twitter account basically started at some point engaging with a meme coin, which is a cryptocurrency, boosting it with their account and their followers that they were getting, and also holding some of that meme coin for themselves. But the AI actually held enough of that coin and increased the value of that coin by influencing social media enough that its assets at some point were over 1 million. I remember it very well because that night I couldn't sleep that night because suddenly the mechanism of how these AIs could get really dangerous had become clear to me. Like if they are given the tools and the ability to just autonomously act by themselves on the internet, and because we know they're digital artifacts, they can be made into millions of copies pretty much easily, especially if someone has enough money and resources to create millions of agents. And one of the interesting things they wanted to see there was, do these agents form civilizations together with their own sort of government, culture, and economy? And the answer was yes. You just leave 1,000 LLMs to play with each other. They start forming a government. They develop culture. They develop economies.
Next up, we have Lorelai Ensemble, who specializes in teaching and learning through AI and how professors and students can leverage AI to make the best out of it.
And where you can introduce Gen AI ethically is like learning activities. So how can I create a learning activity that's going to help the students achieve that assessment, right? Or be successful in that assessment. And I think that's where Gen AI can really come in ethically from a learning perspective and from a teaching perspective. And also then you're modeling to students as well.
And it can also help like adapt to different cultures and different kinds of people with disabilities. So have you experimented with that? How to make AI adapt to different kinds of students?
Oh my gosh, yes. So Notebook LLM, right? So great. Everyone's raving about it. It's so great. So that's a perfect example. Take your lecture notes or take an article and you upload it into the Notebook LLM and it produces this podcast. Often, especially in university, we talk about higher order thinking skills, but when do you actually get to practice them? So what Gen AI tools are doing, I think, is kind of not revolutionizing, but having us kind of look at how we teach again and focus more on those skills, on those life skills, right? and through the theory and through the frameworks, yes, but it's those life skills that we really want the students to end up having and being very confident in and competent in when they graduate. And I think Gen AI tools allow us to do that, to develop those life skills. So I think it's really important as an institution that we make space and time for developing artificial intelligence literacy amongst the students, the staff, and the instructors. Because if we don't provide that type of support and those type of resources, how can we expect our instructors to, model that ethical teaching? A big part of my job right now is going to different faculties and departments and creating these workshops with the help of generative AI tools to do that, to explain what is artificial intelligence literacy, how do you communicate this to your students, how do you design your assessments in a way that benefits your students and doesn't penalize them, right? Because I think some instructors now are just making the assignments impossible because they're so worried that students are going to cheat.
So how do you leverage AI in constructing a course?
One that I like to use is one that's developed by a professor here at Workland School of Education. His name is Dr. Suresh Sabagan. The tool is called Smarty, and it's amazing. It'll create a course for you. And not only that, but he's incorporated universal design for learning principles. So it's very inclusive, and it is aware and reduces bias barriers. You can fine-tune the course elements to accessibility requirements. So it's a really great tool.
Honestly, in a lot of things in life, getting started is the hardest part.
Right?
And AI really helps with that.
Absolutely, exactly. And then you might not even go in that direction, right? But you prompt, and then that might give you a completely different idea for something. And that's what I love about it. And that's where the creative thinking, like there's some research, our students are not going to be creative thinkers anymore, but they have to be, because if you're not, then if you're using it to help create, to generate output for your assignment, it's not going to be as good as if you were prompting. And I also equate it to like you and I just talking now, like if we were talking about an assignment. What do you think? What are you going to do? How would you do this? Is it any different? I don't think so, right?
I couldn't agree more. There's a lot of times where I'm working on things that are something I never really worked on before, something new, brand new, and something that's not even worked on before by anyone else. So there's not a lot of information on the internet. So that's where AI can help me get started. One day I actually spent over 2 hours having a back and forth conversation, just brainstorming, getting an understanding of the thing I'm working on.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever done that before?
Oh, absolutely. I was creating a workshop and I'm like, I have an idea, but I don't really know what it could look like, right? So I went in there and back and forth. And like I said earlier, I ended up kind of going in a different direction.
Yeah.
But if I hadn't done that, I wouldn't even thought of that other direction, right? Yeah. So that's where, the creativity, critical thinking comes into play, because I could have just been like, yeah, but that's not quite what I was thinking. So you just prompt. And it's kind of neat when you're like, and then you kind of, you're doing great, you're almost there. Give me another idea, right?
Next up is Dr. Sarah Eden, who has a very similar background to our previous interviewee. Her interest in studying generative AI and its impact began while drafting a book on plagiarism in higher education during the COVID-19 pandemic. Initially planning on a chapter on the future of plagiarism, she realized early signals about AI's potential impact on writing and academic integrity, even before ChatGPT's emergence. This led to a complete shift in her research focus towards AI's effects on plagiarism and academic misconduct. She starts off the interview with a very bold statement that I personally really agree with. Check it out.
For me, it's made me rethink my entire understanding of what it means to plagiarize. Mm-hmm. And so one of the things I proposed in my work is, what if we're entering a post-plagiarism era?
Okay.
One in which human AI hybrid writing is the norm. Mm-hmm. And trying to figure out where the human ends and the AI begins is impossible because of the back and forth, the dynamic, the ability to remix, reuse, all those kinds of things. So we put together a little study about, can professors and teaching assistants tell the difference between AI and human-generated text? We put that together, the study together. We have to put it through the Research Ethics Board, right? We have to get permission to run that study, and then we have to find research participants, run them through the study. And then by the time we did all that, well, our study was based on GPT-2. By the time we ran our study,
GPT-3 was out.
3.5.
Oh my God.
It was that fast, right? Yeah, it's really tricky. And the Research Ethics Board, understandably, want to know exactly what you're doing, how you're doing it, what technologies you're using, because they need to be able to assess the potential risks to human participants. With the technology moving this fast, those risks, we may not know them for a little while. So being pretty small c conservative in the kinds of research that we do, but yeah, the technology outpacing how fast we can research, it's a problem for me.
And I'm wondering, so since it's like constantly always building off itself, and we've got these amazing, engineers that are helping, what's the word, training the program, when it's constantly learning off itself, how are we ever meant to catch up to that?
Right? It's a good question. Yeah. I don't have an answer yet.
I don't think any of us do. What opportunities do you see for AI to promote equity, diversity, and accessibility in education?
So many. We talked about ones before, like leveling the playing field in terms of financial equity, right? So those really wealthy students who could have afforded tutors, now people can have personalized tutors using AI, and also the potential for personalized learning experiences with AI to guide that. We have a colleague in education who's developed an app called Smarty, and that helps teachers, one, create lesson plans according to the course outlines and the learning outcomes, and then not only the course outline, but then assignments that, relate back to the learning objectives. But then let's say you have a student with a disability. It can help you say, okay, I have a blind student. It will create another possible assignment that still meets the learning outcomes that's adapted. So before that, teacher would have probably had to go on websites like Teachers Pay Teachers or other places to think, how the heck do I redesign an assessment for a blind student in a way that's still meaningful for them, assuming they care about that, right? So it can do some of the heavy lifting, both for teachers and for students. I am inspired by the possibility of people being able to become the best versions of themselves. And what I mean by that, I don't mean like some cybernetic kind of thing going, I mean like whatever your innate gifts and talents are, that you can be the best version of you using the tools available to you.
Next up, we also have another learning specialist who's looking for ways to leverage generative AI to enhance education. We have Dr. Tyson Kendon. Roll the clip.
We have a few instructors like Dr. Keyhani who have a lot of interest, and they've been pursuing it very deeply. Similarly, Dr. Sabagan Sarouche from Workland has been doing a lot of work with these systems already. Other instructors are interested in how they can use AI to extend work they were already doing. And then a lot of instructors are just curious right now, like they were not prepared. So that's sort of where the impetus for me to be involved with AI comes from, is finding ways to work with instructors where they're looking to work with AI. And then basically most of my experimentation with AI systems is sort of in that light of, okay, an instructor's asked me, how could I go about doing this or that? And I then can sort of go out and explore. For a lot of my day-to-day work, I find the authenticity of human creation important. For me, I often start coming at it from the instructor side of, if you are going to use artificial intelligence, are you doing it in a way that is authentic, which is a little hard to assess in 2024 because it's not a thing that's been long practiced. I've been assuming that we are going to have automatically written code, basically any time now for the last 20 years. So it finally happened. The thing there is, I think as a developer, there's still a responsibility to understand that the right pieces are there. So my first concern with most AI systems is EDI, and making sure that really everyone is represented in these systems. So a lot of systems, certainly when we go back to like image recognition, a lot of systems struggle to identify people because their data sets are often very white and very male. These OWL cameras that we have here will very often edit out anybody wearing a mask because they're not matching what the profile of a person looks like. Then they will also edit out brown people. So we've definitely had situations where we've had several white people and several colleagues sitting between them, and the camera will only show the white people in the room. As a person who spent a lot of time working in AI, because I really started in the early 2000s, and we looked at a lot of the things you could do with a transformer large language model. And sure, if we had enough computing, that would be interesting. And so it's caught me off guard that we arrived there, because we kind of went from, this is really hard to compute, and you'd need to build nuclear power plants to run it, and we did, or we are. And so I think that's the thing that's really kind of surprised me as we've gone on. And I don't know what the future looks like as far as it goes. Are we going to have as rapid a pace of advancement, or are we going to slow down for a little while and people are going to spend some time really being able to see what authentic use of AI looks like in different areas? If you look at the work of Wissenbaum, who developed ELIZA, he was very much of the perspective that you can't trust an AI system because people will put everything that's in their head on that system. We are the species who finds God in toast. We as people need to be cautious about how we approach these AI systems and sort of be aware of what they're actually doing and what they're able to do and how they ethically fit into our lives.
So you might have noticed how all interviewees mentioned the name Soroush Sabahan. Well, there's a good reason for that. He actually came up to our class and gave us a tutorial on the powers of agentic AI. But for now, here's an eye-opening short clip of him demonstrating its powers.
So here's what's happening. Multiple agents are going to start running. And you're going to see the thinking process involved. So the first tool is an agent that is going to create a file. There it is. You can actually tell your computer what you want. So I've done this with PowerPoint. I told it to write me 7 slides on prompt engineering with PowerPoint. It opened up PowerPoint. It created the slides one by one. It put in the content and gave me a nice summer theme. And it did that in about a minute. And it was really good. So where is Apple and Meta and Google going with all their augmented reality tech that doesn't seem to have any purpose at the moment, and gesturing? So they anticipated this, or they already have it, but they haven't released it yet. So in about a year from now, we really wouldn't need screens, computers, or keyboards, or mouses, because everything will run in the cloud. That's why I think it's going to change the future. It's going to change everything. It's going to change the way we live and we interact with technology.
We then have Ophira Horwitz, who's specializing in a very fascinating field of generative AI called jailbreaking. And according to our professor, she's actually one of the best in the world in jailbreaking. She also posts a lot of her cool findings and creations on her X account, aka Twitter. So I definitely recommend you guys to check it out. But without further ado, here's a short clip of her.
If you guys have a chance to read my Twitter threads, it's really interesting. I wrote this with a base model and I had it mimic my voice, and 0 people have called me on this. And they're like, I'm literally using an AI to imitate me. You'd think somebody would be more concerned about this. But it flows so naturally and flows into my personality so naturally that people are probably just like, oh, she got a word here and there and added it in, and they don't know the extent to which I really used it. Yeah, exactly. So base models start out, they're completion engines. So I use them for writing as a writing tool. I really I'll send you guys around the link later to there's an app called Lumcidian. It's in a computer app called Obsidian. And let me show you guys really, really quick how I use them. The model you would be using right now if you download this is Llama Base, which is the Microsoft model. And so basically I have a bunch of writing built up. This is literally a thread I was working on. And then you hit generate and it gives you, I just did you can set the length. I did 5 options and it just tells you what it thinks is most likely to come next. But it's actually, the magical thing is the more context you build up into it, the richer and richer outputs you can get, to the point that I can actually talk about my research that hasn't been done anywhere in the world. And it will actually grasp my thoughts and explain them in my own voice back to me. It's a really beautiful, intimate process. So the concept of hatred, you can actually mathematically represent in the model's mind, and you can be like, well, what happens if I subtract the hatred vector, for example? Or Anthropic had Claude, they released a version for Hughes that believed itself to be the Golden Gate Bridge. And they did that with activation steering. So they actually like went into the network and like pinned down that part of its personality and got it to do really cool things like that.
Taking the spotlight next is Raman Dilan, another industry professional who's a director at Automation Anywhere and has over 2 years of implementing AI in business workflows where he discovered both challenges and transformative results.
So the challenge with generative AI is quality control. It just makes stuff up. So how did we approach this problem and what kind of solutions we put in place? So we put in an agent that does an ethical research and avoids plagiarism. We put human in the loop in our process. We put the brand consistency. We build an agent that just applies the style guide and the voice, maintains the brand voice. We also make sure that our agents are not only creating new blogs, but they can also have ability to maintain existing blogs, refresh existing blogs. So the blogs that we wrote 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, or a month ago needs to be refreshed with all the new trends and keywords and inject so that they are SEO optimized.
Moving on to a more technical use case, we have Jagrat Acharya. I'll just let him introduce himself.
Hi, I'm Jagrat Acharya. I'm in Electrical and Software Engineering Department in Master's in Thesis program. And my thesis is towards bug report management using generative AI to make the process of bug reporting efficient. I'm working on using large language models to generate better bug reports, like how to improve the bug report quality. Working on the fine tuning of it, because large language models are trained on a lot of data, so they're not specialized. But if you train them on a specialized model, so they have the knowledge what they have acquired while pre-training, but fine tuning will make them specific with a particular use case. So we are working on a task which is like, how can we fine tune the language model? Because it's like we are working for the open source projects. So because open source projects has a lot of contributors from all over the world, and even the bug reporting system in that is pretty vague because anyone from the world can just report a bug. So we are fine-tuning the Mistral model so that the person who is reporting a bug just will write in their own language. The model will understand based on the bug report template the developers have specified by the organization. And when they submit, the bug report will automatically transformed in the way which the developers want. And it will also highlight what are the missing parts which you didn't mention in your bug report. And this way the developers get the best possible bug report what they want as per their bug report template. And the reporter doesn't have to take the hassle of reading the bug report template and seeing what he's missing or not.
So as we've seen, there's a lot of use cases for agents working together in the field of generative AI to come up with some solution, achieve a goal. But what kind of research is going on in that area? Well, I'll pass it on to Artemy Gavrilov to tell us all about it.
My name is Artemy Gavrilov. I'm a fourth-year student taking a Bachelor of Science degree. And I'm working with the Department of Computer Science specifically, and my role beyond a student would be partaking in several research projects in the field of generative AI and other forms of machine learning. In my current research project, the focus of the project is to investigate the benefit of communication between LLMs, which of course has been done, but specifically when each model and each agent, as we call them, has differences in personality, expertise, opinions, and very much closely modeling a human committee that would be trying to work together to solve issues. So the hope is that when differing the architecture of each agent and iteratively asking them to talk to each other and deliberate, argue, contribute, question each other, then we'll be able to far reduce not only the errors, of course, but increase the diversity of solutions, perhaps create more nuanced solutions where they won't just get to the easiest, simplest problem, but go beyond that and find and iterate on whatever solutions they might be coming up with. But a key thing would be that I don't want to force the LLMs to converge or force them to argue. I need to create a very natural environment where there's no pressure to come to some answer, because much like with confirmation bias in a single AI, they're extremely susceptible to pressure. The goal is for, after a certain period of time, for the LLMs to have thought a certain breadth. I want them to have considered multiple options and not necessarily just come up with one solution or a correct answer, but communicate their thinking, to communicate what they have considered.
Let's switch gears and discover what's going on in generative AI and healthcare. Starting off with Dr. Nali and G, two researchers at the University of Calgary who are revolutionizing how healthcare data is analyzed and applied. Dr. Lee, an assistant professor in biostatistics and health data science, combines her expertise in statistics and computer science to research AI applications in healthcare. G, a postdoctoral researcher at the Center for Health Informatics, focuses on computational strategies to extract actionable insights from complex healthcare datasets. I'll let them two take it away from here.
For disease identification, there are a lot of opportunities to use generative AI to mine the large amount of EMR data, which is the part Jay is doing right now. Mining all those information require a lot of machine learning AI technology in order to make it efficient and accurate. I'm a leader in AI development for transfusion medicine. I'm developing different type of supervised learning application. I'm part of the Sepsis Canada network. Yeah. And we develop a few different programs to identify sepsis. And the pillar I'm in is mainly to use data-driven methods to identify sepsis cases using electronic health record. And I'm particularly interested in developing machine learning algorithms to identify sepsis using large-scale data.
Just imagine we have a lot of manuscript there, so you can iterate the process for each manuscript, then just collect the results in the eventually, so you will have the final result. So we will use a tool to extract the content from the PDF, and we then will chunking the content into multiple components like the title, abstract, and the introduction, and etc. So in order to let the components to be analyzed by a large language model.
There could be bias in the actually review process. The bias could come from the AI tool that we are using. That's something really interesting to explore as a research topic. And also bias could come from the evaluation process that we are doing, and we will be transparent about the limitation in terms of the validation part.
Coming up, you'll hear from Dr. Ken, a researcher with a strong background in computer science and big data. To begin, Ken explains the current role of generative AI in healthcare and how it's being used to process and extract value from unstructured data like electronic medical records. Roll the clip.
Healthcare, actually, they have various of data type, and I mean text and unstructured data is probably the most dominant one currently, and NLP, with the current state, the state-of-the-art is large language model, the generative AI, which can be using for several ways, such as extracting information or standardize this notes into more structured format. So that could be used for multiple cases in the future. And also some kind of virtual doctor, you can have some assistant or some support, some knowledge can be answered with generative AI. Healthcare is an application, and it's a very important application of generative AI. And they do have some intersection. However, for generative AI, my suggestion is just put more on extending the overall input of generative AI, because it's very specific to different models, like Llama and let's say 5.3 or like a Mistral. A lot of models, they train on totally different structure of data. They look similar, but the prompt should be different. So the first thing is you need to understand the generative model well, to understand what input they take and what kind of output they generate, and how do we play with them, control them, certain degree of control. That is very important. Everybody can use this generative AI, but what is the specialties from a computer science student? What is what ability you can do? The difference is we're using more scientific way to control over it.
Finally, Dr. Ken shares his vision for the future of AI in healthcare, emphasizing its potential to influence preventative care and promote healthier behaviors.
It's really closely aligned with behavior, human behavior. Lots of disease are something is arise from, bad behavior or not very healthy behavior. So with this smart device, with this generative AI, hopefully it can help people to formulate a good behavior, such as like generative AI, multimodal generative AI can understand the picture and generate some of the diet, like some food. For example, I know there's a existing app, like you can take the pictures and it can calculate the calories intake, right? So also can suggest what kind of workout can help you to work this out. So this kind of thing can change the human behavior to prevent hypertension and other stuff.
Last but definitely not least, we have Project NeuroArm, which consists of a team aiming to make surgeries safer through the use of generative AI. Unlike most LLMs, which often suffer from hallucinations and inconsistencies, Dr. Lama's team has developed a specialized model designed to perform reliably under clinical constraints. I'll let Rahul Singh tell you more about it.
Traditionally, the way the technology has evolved was it was more machine, and then human has to interpret that knowledge somehow, and was always determined on the person who is actually accessing that data. But here what we have created our own LLM is to take all that data and create a human readable and interpretable as human talking to another human, rather than we are deciphering that data into our own perspective. So the perspective is always the same. And that's what you see here, where all the data comes in and we can ask a question, it will talk in a human language. So the end result is a human contextual output. 45-year-old showed up or something like that.
You can give it context and then ask a question.
Keeping in mind, this is not just a large language model, there's a huge infrastructure underneath it. If you look at the answer, it's very put together and there's a reasoning behind it. So before we decided what we have to do, we took all the data that we needed on the guidance of Dr. Sanjay and Dr. Sutherland. We had a million records, and because all these books has a very dense data set, we had to actually create another program to actually ingest in a way that is readable for a computer. PDFs are unstructured, but there are, in research paper, there's a bunch of structured data as well. So how do you decipher that and create relationships? So that is our preparatory code that we had to write. So we can put that together. And then we deleted lots of layers out of a foundation model because they are trained on a lot of internet data, which can actually convolute the outcome of it. And then we put some guardrails as well. And then we ran fine tuning on top of it. So it is actually our model with deleted layers on a foundation level as well. Because we had to make them, like nobody writes like it types, write me a Python code. It can't do that. This model has zero knowledge about it because we made it forget. So only thing he knows about this model is the actual neurological model. Because after GPTs, usually if you ask and I ask to say, it will give you similar answer, but it will be different paragraphs. You'll see that. This doesn't do that. It will actually give you exactly the same thing.
Dr. Sutherland here gives us an analogy of how their LLM is intended to work and what benefit it provides.
Remember we talked about that 1.5 million papers a year? Yes. There's a lot of papers out there. And for all you and I know, somebody working on a tadpole has an answer to a medical problem. But there's no way of connecting those two, right? The only way the machine might be able to connect them, if the machine had all the data, the machine might say that tadpole thing might be ideal for those doctors. You follow that? And that's where I think the team tell me relationship model database, you create the patient as a node. The patient has all kinds of different things, an address. The patient a certain age. Patient might have certain ethnicity. Patient might have certain different diseases. Each of those things, each of those are connected to a bunch of things. And so I have this massive relationship between that person and all I might say all the knowledge, which might create opportunities that nobody can see, or even be able to figure it out. I'm not going to talk to a tadpole guy, right? And so, but a machine could talk to both of us, and a machine might have rich data coming from both, and there might find a linkage. Or as Sanju said, somebody might be working on a molecule that is ideal for a neuroscience application, but we have no way of connecting.
Now for the coolest part of the video. Dr. Sanju Lama shows us a demo of their smart forceps system that is used in their operating rooms. She describes how their custom LLM that we just talked about and neural network come into play here, aiding neurosurgeons in real time.
Now, what is important for you, because you are interested in generative AI, is we have two priority surgical device systems hand in hand. Learning from NeuroArm, we went on to sensorize a handheld tool,
Right.
because NeuroArm has sensors on its where the tool touches the patient's tissue. So from that, the surgeon can feel the haptic sensation at the workstation. And that was remarkable and a very interesting realization for someone like Dr. Sutherland, who is a very fine microsurgeon. The brain is a very fine organ. So we don't have the luxury like a bone or somewhere else in the muscle to exert some extra force. So it has to be precise. So he went on to tell, can we install sensors on handheld device? So what the team did was install strain gauge sensors there underneath. And then these are the sensor cable that come here. And this goes to a custom developed signal conditioning unit. And then what it does is these are the electrical signals get converted into something like, so see that? This is a live streaming of tool tissue forces coming from this forceps. And then in the OR, we can also live stream video. And all of these get recorded, and as the time we are operating, they get live streamed to our secure cloud. We use Azure Cloud. So in the cloud, based on our prior 100 cases, we have created a machine learning algorithm,
Right.
custom created on, we call it liquid white box model because it's a transparent AI,
Right.
brand new. Before we had used LSTM, if you know, long short-term memory, deep neural network based on deep learning based on model. But now the team has gone on to re-update that model to still deep learning model, but it's called Liquid S4, which really is, this model does not have to be trained like how machine learning model have to be trained periodically
Right.
by giving newer data. This one, based on the incoming data, this model sort of understands the pattern of data coming in and gives the output based on those patterns. So it does not have to be trained as often. So based on this model, once the data goes through the cloud, it passes through the machine learning model and it gives an output. The output is in the form of a surgeon performance report that the surgeon get on their apps. So right now, that is the scenario. Now what we have added is we have gone on to organize our data in a graph database. It's more like a knowledge graph. It's not a table-based data, but more like a multiple network. This technology is in our 3 centers.
Right.
So because of that, we have created something called IoT OR. We call it Internet of Things Operating Room, because data from all these centers go to the cloud. They are in their own respective site-specific containers, but they pass through this machine learning model. And then they give feedback to those specific surgeons. So it's like a virtual network of things, so to speak. So we call it IoT OR. And every time case is done, that model becomes richer and richer. So now that we have that, and because generative AI came suddenly last year, we started thinking, can we build something? Because we have this beautiful knowledge graph model of data, and we have our own cloud system, can we make a interrogator of some type, interface that you can query? So how did I do today compared to Dr. Sugiyama in Japan? So new surgeons or young surgeons can compare their performance to other master surgeons, not purely based on what they receive on their app, but real time.
If there's one key takeaway we hope you get from this video, it's the power of adaptability. Every person we spoke to shared one common trait: the ability to embrace change and grow with it. There will always be fear that something or someone will take away your job. But once you start trusting that you'll be able to adapt to whatever happens in the world, that fear fades away. On behalf of our team, a heartfelt thank you to all the incredible interviewees who generously shared their time and insights with us. Hi, this is AI speaking in the voice of Rami. Can you tell the difference between my AI voice and the real Rami? Here's a fun challenge for you. In one of the voiceovers where a speaker is introduced, it wasn't Rami. It was actually me. Can you figure out which one it was? Did you prefer one over the other? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Since you've made it all the way to the end of the video, here are some more interviews, but this time it's with complete strangers. Shout out to Smit for helping me record these interviews. For your mental health and for self-improvement, what is the process like for you to leverage ChatGPT? Do you have a specific example?
Yeah. So for today, I was looking into yoga and then how I can use that to kind of help me develop my focus and concentration. So I'll just ask ChatGPT for advice. Like, hey, there's a problem, which is that like, how can I want to enhance my focus, and I want to use yoga or meditation as a tool to do that, and it gives me a whole breakdown. That's very helpful and very relevant for me.
Yeah, that what I'm realizing with ChatGPT and all of the LLMs and AI, it's the perfect tool to enhance personalization.
One of the main things I like to use ChatGPT for is anytime there's some sort of book I want to read but I don't have time for, I would often ask it to just give me all the information for that. I'm a huge lore junkie.
Lawyer?
Lore, like
Oh, lore.
yeah. I one thing I do a lot is if I want to know just some background information on a book that I haven't read,
Yep.
I would ask it that information so I could get into the latest version of that book or the latest novel.
That reminds me of a certain YouTuber that mentioned that one way to enhance and make the best of a book is by just reading the book and also having ChatGPT on the side. And basically, whenever as you're reading something and you're not sure about something, you just straight up ask it and have a conversation about it to get some clarification and see how you can apply certain things to your life.
A lot of times when I'm looking up for like knowledge for a specific topic, topic. You can use the web search function with ChatGPT if you have premium, and you can get information from multiple different sources, and you can verify them after. So one of the cool things that allows you to do is if there's something where you want to hear the opinion of multiple sides or multiple perspectives, it will find you a source for every kind of perspective.
It's hard for me to trust that, but in some way, yes. But it's hard for me to trust that they're gonna give you every single perspective. I feel like it will just give you the most popular or like the general popular perspectives.
You're right with the basic prompt. That's absolutely what it does. But one of the things you can do is
prompt engineer.
Yeah, you prompt engineer it specifically to give you those niche, more obscure perspectives too.
Well, yeah, we learned this in our course that we're doing, and I guess that could help. Have you tried Perplexity? Have you found any
Perplexity?
any advantage compared to the new ChatGPT features with web search?
I've tried Perplexity, and I think it's really good when you run out of credits for ChatGPT.
Bad handwriting, I'm sorry. Do you guys have any cool ways?
It's really good for summarizing papers. So
engineering answers.
Yeah.
Figuring out the steps in between. But
Creating
that's not really
like
cool
study
use.
guides, stuff like that.
Say in like mathematics and physics, if you give it the start and the end, it'll forcibly fit something to get to the end, and it doesn't really do it super well. So if it has some sort of a logical fallacy, it can't really catch it on its own. And so you yourself actually have to know the content if you want to catch it. So I want to really recommend using it that way. But there's a concept, and it's a well-known concept, and you want it broken down, and you want a formula described in a paper, it works really well. But once again, not really that cool of a use, I think, more nerd shit, but yeah.
That kind of echoes what we heard from our other previous interviewees who were not here, but we actually interviewed like other professors who are specializing in Gen AI and how to use it for education and learning. So, and that's basically what they said as well.
If you're ever at a new restaurant and you don't know what to order, you can copy and paste the whole menu into chat and tell it to give you order recommendations based off Google reviews. It's a great way. It's never failed me.